Oh my God, I love this wig. Probably because it's the only time I look remotely related to my twins. So here's the thing. While some episodes of my podcast can be made short and sweet, this is just not one of those episodes. The history of this castle could quite literally give Game of Thrones a run for their money. Ireland's notorious Leap Castle has a violent history and is considered to be the most haunted castle in the country. And we have a fair share, like 30,000 from ruins to still in use. Leap Castle was built in the 13th century by the O'Bannon clan. Two O'Bannon brothers competed for control by leaping from a rock. The survivor gained control over the castle and the family clan, which likely explains the original name of the castle, Lame O'Bannon, or O'Bannon's Leap. In the 15th century, the O'Bannon ceded power to the O'Carroll clan, who took control of the castle. The O'Carroll clan dominated the surrounding Ely territory and called themselves the Princes of Ely. John O'Carroll built early sections of the castle but died in 1489. His son Mulrooney O'Carroll continued the construction and ruled until 1532. After a bloody fight, his son Fergan Anam seized control of the castle. The fight was between cousins, illegitimate sons and namesakes. Fergan Anam allegedly murdered his brother Thaddeus, a priest. Definitely did it. While he was performing a mass in the upper hall of the castle, now referred to as the Bloody Chapel, simply for starting the mass without him. After Fergan Anam took control, a conflict arose with the local clan, the O'Malloys. During a brief respite from fighting against one another, they were invited to a celebratory dinner after winning a battle for Fergan Anam, but were brutally killed at the feast. A very red wedding. To no one's surprise, the O'Malloys then killed Fergan Anam in 1541. Now this next part gets a bit crazy. Fergan Anam was survived by his sons William, Mulrooney, Utnia and Teague. Teague became Lord Baron of Ely, but was later assassinated by his cousin Cahir, who was then killed by Teague's younger brother William. William ruled for 27 years before being murdered by his cousin John O'Carroll in 1581. Later, Teague's son Mulrooney murdered John, but was then in turn killed by John's brother Calvic. That's not even the worst part. In 1600, Charles was murdered in a family feud as retaliation for previously killing 29 MacMahon nobles. The Northern MacMahon clan, how big is a clan if it has to be distinguished geographically? Anyway, the O'Carrolls hired the MacMahons to train them in new methods of warfare. During a feast at the castle, the MacMahon family unknowingly ingested poison food provided by their hosts to avoid paying for their training. Absolute madness. In 1629, Charles O'Carroll's nephew John officially gained ownership of Leap Castle. However, the family lost the estate in the Cromwellian confiscations in 1649. Then, the property of Leap Castle was given to Jonathan, a soldier of the Cromwellian forces, who received property and land instead of pay. Jonathan was then captured by the O'Carrolls and held prison in the dungeon in Leap Castle. But Fionnuala, one of the O'Carroll's daughters, gave him food and water and helped him escape. Jonathan later returned and married Fionnuala, the heiress of the castle. Scandal. 1664 saw the property returned to John O'Carroll due to his loyalties to Charles I. However, it was then returned to the Darbys 3 years later due to differing views of Charles II. Leap Castle stayed with that family for years. In about 1750, Jonathan Darby V, nearly all the Darby firstborns were named Jonathan, remodelled the castle into his mansion home, adding Gothic wings to the south and north sides. Successive Darbys made further additions over the centuries. Now here's where things get super creepy. In the 19th century, workmen at Leap Castle found an oubliette, a secret dungeon accessible only through a trapdoor in its ceiling, hidden in the floor behind a wall in the corner of the Bloody Chapel. If you don't know what an oubliette is, Google it. I can't describe how terrifying this thing is. When the workmen explored the dreadful cavity further, they made a horrendous discovery, because trapdoors are rarely a good thing. There were enough human skeletons piled on top of wooden spikes, iron spikes, that protruded from the floor that would have taken 3 full carts to remove them all. Approximately 150 skeletons were discovered. Prisoners or unsuspecting guests of the O'Carrolls would have been thrown down through the trapdoor above the oubliette, where the spikes below would have pierced their lungs. They would have been left there to die a horrific and painful death, within earshot of their gracious hosts and their merriment above. Quite possibly one of the saddest things I have ever read is the word oubliette comes from the French word oublier, which means to forget. Lord Jonathan Charles Darby also discovered 3 upright skeletons sealed into an external wall. He ordered the wall be rebuilt, with the skeletons undisturbed, believing his ancestors likely had a reason for burying him that way in the first place. Now, he may not have wanted to antagonize the spirits, but his wife Mildred, on the other hand, was actively trying to have the chats and a bit of banter with the spirits. At the same time, she started practicing the occult by holding seances in the castle and engaging in automatic writing. It's where you hold a pen and you allow spirits or supernatural entities to dictate written words. Like a ghost pen pal. The castle was rumoured to be severely haunted, but Mildred, or Millie as she preferred, was forbidden to write about the events that she witnessed. But she got around the ban by using a pseudonym, Mary Andrew, and renaming the castle Kilman Castle, which I think is just brilliant. She submitted her findings to the Occult Review magazine, where her articles were published and extended to nearly 40 pages. One part describes Captain Gordon's visit to the castle. Now, I can't tell his complete account here. It would take up too many TikToks to include it and everything else, and no one likes the sound of my voice that much. But you will find it on YouTube. There's a chap on there called Our Legends. Way better Irish accent than me. The castle depicted turbulence and pain for many Irish locals. As a result, Leap Castle was burnt out and destroyed in 1922 by the IRA while the Darbys were living in England. But the stories are still told of apparitions seen by believers and non-believers. Guests have reported being touched or brushed past by someone. An old man has been seen sitting peacefully by the fire in the main hall. A governess or nanny is often seen in the main hall with 2 little girls affectionately known as Emily and Charlotte. They're believed to have lived in the castle in the 1600s. Emily is said to have fallen from the castle's southeasterly battlements, and witnesses have reported seeing her fall and then disappearing before she hits the ground. Charlotte is seen with a deformed right leg running after Emily. After the burning of Leap Castle in 1922, the priest's house has remained an empty shell, but it still has reports of shadowy forms wandering through the building. Mildred Darby describes apparitions including a heavy presence on people's beds, a burly man pushing a barrel up the stairs, and a monk walking through the priest's house. The Red Lady is a tall woman dressed in red, seen carrying a dagger with a strange luminescence. Encounters with this spirit are marked by a chilling cold that fills the room and permeates the heart. The story goes that the woman was captured by an O'Carroll and subsequently assaulted. The baby born as a result of that was then killed by the O'Carrolls, reasoning that they could not afford to feed the child. Distraught, the woman then took her own life with the very same blade. The Bloody Chapel at Leap Castle is believed to be inhabited by many spirits. There have been reports of bright lights coming from the upper windows at night, strange smells of rubber, and sightings of the O'Carroll priest, who was allegedly murdered by his brother. The priest spirit has been seen in the chapel, on the stairway, and leaving through the western door. Revenge, punishment, and power are the ink, pen, and paper that tell the tale of this historically haunted castle. Still, there can only be so much death before the blood starts to spill from the pages of the family scrapbook.